Welcome to the Dumpster Dive. I'm your host, Digby the Cat, because something happened. Now billions must know. We are starting this week's reporting with everyone's favorite, the thing we have talked about every episode, the Iran conflict with the USA. As you can see, the map is actually getting a little complicated. Oh, did I brought up the full map. I brought up the full map. Let's turn off some of these layers. Yes, that one. That'll probably do it. So the Iran conflict continues. Sort of. Well, mm. Right now they are actually sticking to the ceasefire for the most part. It seems like Israel has been reined in by the USA, by President Trump, and they are limiting attacks on Lebanon. However, in this part of the world, it is important to note that a ceasefire is never 100%. A ceasefire is less a complete cessation of hostilities and more just a severe ratcheting down. As in, if normally you're hitting each other 100 times, you're still hitting each other 10 times. So, obviously, sporadic attacks have happened here and there. That is to be expected. Insofar, President Trump's blockade of the blockade continues and has been relatively successful. A number of ships have been turned around, and one coming from China was seized. Do we have that one to hand? Might be on here. Let's see. We do know that they will be extending the Iran ceasefire until negotiations conclude. Now, this is an interesting one, as all the previous extensions have been for a specific number of days. But this is the first time where it is more of an open-ended continuation. Obviously, these negotiations are taking place in Pakistan. JD Vance is still tapped to sort of lead them. It's hard to say because last time, obviously, he spent more time talking to Trump over the phone than he did speaking to the Iranians, meaning there is the strong suspicion that we might wind up in that situation yet again. Obviously, the Iranians are not terribly keen on this, or at least some elements within the country. Obviously, right now it is looking more and more like there is a severe split within the Iranian state between the politicians and the IRGC, who are the primary military force of the country right now. The IRGC and those who side with it are obviously not terribly keen on negotiating with the USA and view it as, oh, how long ago did that happen? That was almost an hour ago. I should have seen that one. Apparently, Transit will not be going to Pakistan. Okay, I don't know what's going on there then. Vance is apparently not going to Pakistan. Whether he will still be leading the negotiations is debatable, but we will see what happens on that front. Obviously, vessels continue to be trapped within the Strait of Hormuz, although some are starting to poke around the edges. We had a rather interesting case earlier this week with 4 cruise ships sailing through the southernmost point of the Strait of Hormuz through the suspected minefield, whilst the IRGC was stating that the strait was closed to all traffic and had earlier attacked an Indian cargo vessel. Meaning, these 4 cruise ships Leroy Jenkins their way through a minefield and the possibility of being shot at by the Iranians. I mean, damn the balls on these motherfuckers. The balls on these motherfuckers. I was looking at the cruise mapper earlier, and at least one of the ships, 2 of them are here, TUI cruises heading to Cape Town, supposedly. I wonder where the other ones have gone. What were they called? Yariba, MSC Yariba and Celestial Journey. Where would they have gone then? They can't have gone that far. Well, apparently they have gotten that far, or they're just not on here for some reason. Well, let's find out. There she is. Oh. Oh, it's with the rest of them. Oh yeah, there they are. They're all actually dead. They're just that close to get together. It is quite impressive though that they all managed to make their way through. I imagine their reasoning was that the southernmost point of the minefield would likely be the thinnest, and as cruise ships, they weren't really a meaningful target for anyone. Like these aren't ships carrying oil or supplies or anything like that. These are just empty cruise ships. Literally the most pointless targets to hit. Either way, hats off to them. Which means apparently all of the cruise ships that were stuck in the Persian Gulf are now clear. Although, as you do recall, we do still see this one, the RMS Saint Helena. Small cruise lines. I don't know what's going on with that one, but apparently all 6 cruise lines are free. And apparently they're resuming itineraries with some cancelled sailings now reinstated. I can you imagine being one of the poor fuckers who got trapped there? It's like you get out, you're free of the war zone, and then like great, get back to work. I sincerely hope that they are swapping out the crew because they have earned a rest. They have earned a rest after that. It is a pleasant case of good news in all of this. And yes, USA seized a Iranian cargo ship. Was this the one heading from China? Or was this the one heading from Iran? Either way, we have the double blockade continuing its wacky hijinks. Overall, the conflict is paused in any meaningful context. No meaningful attacks are taking place, but little sporadic attacks here and there are still taking place. The Iraqi government has apparently last month even, I don't know how I missed this one. The Iraqi government has stated that it is allowing its militias, the militias who stepped up as the country's primary military force after the American-trained Iraqi army dropped its weapons and ran away from ISIS. Yeah, those militias, the ones who stepped up after that, they are very pro-Iranian. And the Iraqi government last month apparently said, you know what, we're not going to stop you. Not that we really could. Go nuts. Kill Americans. I don't envy the Iraqi leadership. I don't even envy the Iraqi leadership their position. Economically dependent on the USA for selling their oil. Militarily dependent on Iran. It's a sticky situation. Still, it just goes to show that the situation here is quite the fuck mess. Horrible, horrible. Yes, it's overall looking like the strait is a mess. Basically what seems to be happening as well is the ships are for the most part listening to the Iranians, whilst the markets are responding more to Trump. As we've seen multiple occasions, Trump says things are going well for the USA. The markets briefly improve, price of oil dips, and then it goes back up. Because again, the shipping is responding to Iran's actions, whilst the markets are not. Obviously, the shipping is the real economy, which means eventually the markets will have to reflect it. There's no getting around that one. You can't financial instrument your way out of this one. There is no financial instrument that will stop this from fucking you over in the long term. Obviously, as the ceasefire drags on, we might see a resumption of shipping to some extent. It's all up in the air. Obviously, right now, a lot of shipping companies who would normally be all over this are going to be a lot more reluctant to sail through the strait because that is, well, it's a bit dangerous. There's a high risk of your ship getting stuck. Now, this is an interesting one that has come up once again. There has long been a bit of speculation that someone within President Trump's team has been organizing or orchestrating some insider trading. BBC has recently put out a fairly hefty article on this, covering a number of instances of this occurring. Basically, traders making bets on millions of dollars in the markets just before Trump makes major announcements. So it's like oil trading spot volume spikes shortly before CBS interview, sends prices tumbling. Oil trades jump again before Trump post on Iran, moves oil price. You see the you see the sort of thing happening at trading spikes, Trump post, boom. Liberation Day paused. Traders start making big bets on stock market going up. Trump announced his Paris pause. Stock market begins historic surge. It's an interesting collection of information, and there is a very high probability that someone is doing a insider trading. Someone is doing this. Although it is hard to say who it could be. It could be anyone. It could be anyone. It could be someone acting at the behest of President Trump himself. It could be someone on his staff. It could be just a random guy in the White House who just listens. It could be the fucking cleaner in the White House. If Trump gets particularly animated, particularly loud, he might be like just listening outside, going, "Oh yeah, 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 okay." He's gonna do that around then, so let's get on that. Obviously, it is unlikely that anything will realistically come of this because obviously it's very common in the American political system for politicians to engage in insider trading. The Pelosi tracker, for instance, was a long stand. Actually, is the Pelosi tracker still a thing? Oh, Pelosi tracker monitor. Follow Congress members publicly disclosed. Total value. Oh, you gotta sign it up. Boo. Monthly change plus 16%. Portfolio performance plus 49%. One last year plus 90%. Goddamn, Pelosi just completely dominating the market by the look of it. But the Pelosi tracker, for instance, has long been a thing. Basic idea being that a lot that you follow Nancy Pelosi's trading activity, you're probably going to come out ahead. Which is been a long-standing gag and actual sound financial advice. It's a funny thing. It's a funny thing. So it is pretty likely that someone is engaging in these shady shenanigans, but not much you can really do about it. It's very unusual for someone to be prosecuted or otherwise punished for this in the USA. It's kind of just a perk of the job, really. So the conflict is at a pause, as much as a pause in the Middle East ever is. The talk of American stockpile depletion continues. Then the Iranians reportedly have more stockpiles than everyone was suspecting had survived. As it stands, it is difficult to say where this conflict could go. Trump is reportedly sick of it and wants out, but he wants to come out smelling of roses. Whether or not that'll happen is an entirely different question on its own. All in all, it's a mess. It has always been a mess, and it will continue to be a mess for the foreseeable future. It all hinges on the upcoming negotiations, and we won't really have anything there until, well, they've happened. Although with JD Vance reportedly no longer going, I don't know what's going to happen there. And moving on to other news. Now, let's get the Business Insider article. Palantir has put out a bizarre manifesto. Really, quite the odd little manifesto. Palantir's 22-point summary. It is kind of weird. The CEO put out a strange manifesto through the company. And it has ruffled more than a few feathers and caused more than a little upset. So let's go through these 22 points. Silicon Valley owes a moral debt to the country that made its rise possible. The engineering elite of Silicon Valley has an affirmative obligation to participate in defense of the nation. Now, notice there they don't say like the general benefit or general good of the nation. No, they focus on defense. Obviously, Palantir is a defense company, so it's kind of obvious what they're going for there. We must rebel against the tyranny of the apps. Is the iPhone our greatest creative, if not crowning achievement as a civilization? The object has changed. I'm like, wow, the iPhone is the USA's greatest achievement. It's the crowning achievement of this civilization. Yeah, actually, no, that tracks. But it may also now be limiting and constraining our sense of the possible. What, does he want people to have Palantir brain implants or something? I don't know where he's going with this one, but if you think you've got a decent product, Palantir, put it out. Free email is not enough. The decadence of a culture or civilization, and indeed its ruling class, will be forgiven only if that culture is capable of delivering economic growth and security for the public. So, is he saying here that people will be prepared to tolerate the Epstein crowd if the economy is good? Is that what he's saying here? Oh, people won't mind that we're a bunch of cannibal pedophiles so long as the economy is doing well. People will allow us to molest and eat children so long as the economy is doing well. The worst part is that I could actually see a number of people in the USA making that argument. I could see people making that argument. The limits of soft power, of soaring rhetoric alone have been exposed. The ability of free and democratic societies to prevail requires something more than moral appeal. It requires hard power, and hard power in this century will be built on software. Disagree. Hard power will be built on weapons. You know, things that go boom and bang. Obviously, they're a software company, so they're going to have a very different opinion. The question is not whether AI weapons will be built, it is who will build them and for what purpose. Adversaries will not pause to indulge in theatrical debates about development of technologies. So basically, he's saying there, let us do whatever we want. No regulation. Right? Again, typical Silicon Valley sort of thinking. The mantra there is move fast, break things. So, you know. Now, this is the one that has caused a lot. This is the one that has caused a lot of upset among some circles. Mainly younger people who would be the ones most likely to be affected by this. The CEO in question being far too old and wealthy to be affected by this. National service should be a universal duty. Basically, conscription. Basically, conscription. That's what he's calling for here. He is calling for mass conscription. Now, that has obviously caused more than a little upset because the USA has been in a perpetual state of war for decades now. Indeed, for almost, 100 years almost? Probably more? The point is, the USA has been involved in a lot of wars. If it starts conscripting again, it's going to get involved in even more wars. Not a good option. Not a good option. It's not a good situation for anyone, really. So this is the one that has been catching all the headlines. But let's move on to the other ones. If a US Marine asks for a better rifle, we should build it, and the same goes for software. Appropriate and military access, action abroad. So basically, more money to the military industrial complex. Public servants need not be our priests. Any business that compensated its employees in the way that the federal government compensates public servants would struggle to survive. Basically, is he? I think he's saying here that public servant pay is not very good, and so long as he's not directing this towards elected official. But then again, public servants have side benefits that private employees do not. They typically have much better pension plans, being defined benefit rather than defined payment. So, as in, you will get an final salary pension rather than a 401k or whatever kind of you pay in system you may otherwise be using. Public servant pensions tend to be very generous. And obviously, there are usually a lot of side benefits like medical, uh, very generous holiday plans, various subsidies, relocation bonuses if needed, all sorts of things, all sorts of things. And then, of course, there is just the general high level of job security. If you're a public servant, chances are you will stay one because there is nothing else for you to do. And the organs of government, they must continue to churn. They will always have a need. They will always have a need. In China, they refer to public servant jobs as an iron rice bowl. A basic idea being that the normal people have a ceramic rice bowl, and if they drop it, it smashes. But with an iron rice bowl, you can drop it, throw it around, whatever, it's intact. You're good. You don't need to worry. And generally speaking, throughout history, this has been proven to be quite true. Wherever public servants are typically one of the last groups to really start suffering the effects of any major economic downturns or general bad general bad shit because they are typically paid a lot better. Well, not a lot better, but their pay is reliable because it isn't reliant on market performance. It's reliant on tax revenue. And governments can and will just borrow money if necessary. Anyways, we should show far more grace towards those who have subjected themselves to public life. My guess here would be he's suggesting of any tolerance to complexities and contradictions. I can sort of get this one. I can sort of get this one. Basically, he's saying here we demand too much perfection of anyone in the public sphere, like politicians, business leaders like himself, and so on and so forth. I can see where he's coming from with this, but at the same time, if you're going to trust these people in major political offices, they need to be held to a higher standard. Psychologization of modern politics is what is that? Those who look to the political arena to nourish their soul and sense of self, who rely too heavily on their internal life, finding expression in people who they may never meet, will be left disappointed. I guess he's saying here people who get too into politics will be disappointed. Yeah, no, reasonable. I can actually agree with this one. Society is growing too eager to hasten and is often gleeful at the. Yeah. Yeah, okay, I can agree with that one. I can agree with that one. The atomic age is ending. One age of deterrence is the atomic age is ending, and a new era of deterrence built on AI is set to begin. Disagree. Hard disagree. Your AI is not going to do much good against a nuclear weapon. I'm dreadfully sorry, old boy, but your AI will not stop a nuke. A best case scenario, he can develop or control mechanisms that would allow you to intercept a nuclear weapon, but realistically, he's not stopping a nuke. The atomic age continues, and we never got to see its promise. No other country in the history of the world has advanced progressive values more than this one. The United States is far from perfect, but it's easy to forget how much more opportunity exists in this country for those who are not hereditary elites than in any other nation on the planet. Uh, to an extent, yeah. Okay, yeah, I'd sort of see this one. However, mm, what does he mean by progressive values here? Mm. To an extent, I can sort of agree with that one. American power has made possible an extraordinarily long peace. Too many people have forgotten or perhaps taken for granted nearly a century of some version of peace has prevailed in the world without a great military power conflict. Billions of people, their children, their grandchildren, never known a world war. The world wars were kind of an unusual occurrence. These weren't happening every other day. I think this one's a bit of a boomerism. I think this one's a bit of a boomerism, ignoring like wider historical trends. There were typically periods of peace, followed by periods of conflict, followed by periods of peace, blah 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 blah. He isn't wrong in that whenever there is a great power, there tends to be peace. Like when Rome conquered most of Europe, it was relatively peaceful for a while. When Britain emerged from the Napoleonic Wars as the dominant power, again, peaceful, relatively speaking, for a while, notwithstanding Britain's war against slavery, but you get the point. A single dominant power tends to lead to a relatively peaceful period. And right now, that is to the extent USA, despite its habit of involving itself in wars, it probably shouldn't. The post-war neutering of Germany and Japan must be undone. Yeah, okay, I can see this one. The Japan one is kind of interesting because that one was kind of self-inflicted by the Japanese. Like the people like to say the Americans were behind that one, but no, apparently that was the Japanese themselves. As there were a number of people within the Japanese government at the time who feared basically being enslaved by the Americans and used as fodder in a war. So that was apparently one of the reasons why they were relatively insistent on the pacifism thing. Obviously, obviously the Germany is sort of trying to get its shit together, but Germany has big cultural hangups on this front, so it's unlikely that will work out. And Japan is definitely going down that route entirely of their own volition. We should applaud those who attempt to build where the market has failed to act. Culture almost snickers at Musk's interesting grand narrative, as if billionaires ought to simply stay in their lane of enriching themselves. Any curiosity or genuine interest in the value of what he has created is essentially dismissed or perhaps lurks from beneath a thinly veiled scorn. I mean, that would be nice if most of these billionaires did care about anything other than continuing to enrich themselves. Musk is kind of an outlier, primarily on the basis that Musk is a psychologically damaged autistic weirdo. He basically is just an outlier. So, and this guy trying to compare himself to Musk, which I think is what he's trying to do here, is no, it doesn't work. Silicon Valley must play a role in addressing violent crime. Uh, this is a dangerous one. Obviously, there are elements where you might say they might be useful. Facial recognition technology, despite the many concerns surrounding it. What else? Like predictive stuff that's being attempted. Basically, there are options certainly, but Silicon Valley has, as mentioned earlier, the move fast, break things mentality. They don't really stop to think whether they should do something or if something is legal or is ethical or whatever. They just go and do it, which could, in this context, leads to some serious problems. For instance, right now in the USA, there is quite a bit of trouble surrounding flock security cameras and just who exactly has access to them. With some police departments obviously not wanting federal agencies such as ICE to have access to their footage, but obviously they do because they have access to it either directly from the company or they have access to it via other police departments who it's already being shared with. It's regardless of where you stand on the immigration front, it can be a little bit iffy when you've got all these facial recognition cameras running and they aren't particularly reliable. The app developed by and used by ICE for facial recognition and tying like facial recognition data to identities has been known to fail consistently, which is obviously not very good when you're trying to figure out whether you need to deport someone. It's obviously not good, but there obviously is a role for the technology in all of this, but I don't think letting Silicon Valley do as it pleases is the way to go. The ruthless exposure to private lives of public figures drives far too much talent away from government service. Mm, from the politician side, maybe, but most people who would be interested in becoming politicians would never have the chance, anyways, because they don't have access to the wealth or networks necessary. So, realistically, eh. But the more important thing here is that the civil servants are generally flying under the radar. The unelected officials and so on all tend to fly under the radar. So on that front, it's not really a problem. I think it's more just a question of prestige and what people are valuing. Like obviously, if you want big paychecks, you go to private sector. If you want security and stability, you go public. You know, it's kind of not. I don't know. I'm not really sure I agree with this one. Mainly because the people who genuinely matter in the state, the public servants, the unelected officials, they fly under the radar. They need to be exposed more. The caution in public life that we unwittingly encourage is corrosive. Again, this ties into move fast, break things. Silicon Valley is very much a risk, very much a very risk happy environment. I think part of it comes from software simply like like most occurrences, if a piece of software just shits itself, it's not going to cause that much of an issue. You know, if you put this like the Silicon Valley thinking to work in other fields, there'd be rather substantial body counts. Could you imagine it when applied to, say, a chemical manufacturing facility? Even with the amount of care taken now, we still have large scale pollution, we still have contamination, we still have accidents with rather hefty body counts. There is a American government agency who loves to put out little animated videos about specific incidents and accidents at various chemical plants, and it's like, yes, they followed every procedure except this one, or this went wrong and this many people died. It's like, oh dear, that could you imagine the move fast, break things mentality applied there, where doing things incorrectly can result in, like, well, a cloud of poisonous gas being spat out over a town? It would not be a pleasant experience for anyone. Pervasive intolerance of religious beliefs in certain circles must be resisted. The elite's intolerance of religious belief. I mean, in the USA, the elite are pretty religious by the standards of most these days. So I'm not really. I think this is more of just like an Americanism than anything else. Although not even an Americanism. This is like a boomer American. Like we're second. Okay, okay. No, I see where this one's coming from. I see where this one's coming from. He's Jewish. He's complaining about people not liking Jews without saying Jew. Some Confucian cultures have produced vital advances, others remain dysfunctional and regressive. All cultures are now equal. Christian. Yeah, no, this one's spot on. This one's spot on. Yeah, this one's spot on. Must resist the shallow temptation of a vacant and hollow pluralism. We in America and more broadly the West have for the past half century resisted defining national cultures in the name of no, that one's also spot on. Those last two are pretty spot on. Overall, obviously, this whole thing has caused a bit of a kerfluffle. Primarily because Palantir is a company known for being shady as fuck. There are a few companies more shady than Palantir. They primarily create software for use by state security apparatus and other defense and policing uses. It's a I wouldn't really trust Palantir with anything. To be frank, I wouldn't trust Palantir with anything. I wouldn't trust them to breathe in my vicinity because I would be convinced they're up to no good. Because they would be. I don't like the Guardian, but solely the benefits of American power. A parody of a RoboCop film and the ramblings of a supervillain, according to some. I like that. That makes it sound a lot cooler than it actually is. That makes it sound a lot cooler than it actually is. Obviously, don't trust Palantir. That would be my general goal. That would be my general response to all this. Obviously, this one is the one that's causing the most outroar. But generally speaking, every nation is right now looking to conscript its young to some extent. But we'll move on from this story and on to our next story. NASA is shutting off another of Voyager 1's instruments as humanity's most distant spacecraft prepares for a maneuver to save power. Now, the two Voyager spacecraft utilize a nuclear battery. It's a small piece, as I understand it, it's a small piece of nuclear material that is being used to convert thermal energy to electrical energy, I think it was. And as these things have started to wind down and their half-life degrades, the power output declines, they are having to turn off more and more instruments to keep these spacecraft these satellites, these probes operational so they can continue to receive information from them. Obviously, these have gone further than anything else ever made by man, so anything they send back is of profound interest. There are literally people working on these spacecraft, these probes, who were born after they were launched. So let's see. Get the two Voyager probes an extra boost of life later in this summer. Shut down one of its last remaining science instruments. Does shut down the low energy charged particle experiments. An instrument that has looked at ions, electrons, and cosmic rays surrounding the aircraft. An unexpected power drop. I wonder what caused that. Oh well. Rely on a radioisotope thermoelectric generator. Aha, I was right. Decaying plutonium into power. The spacecraft loses roughly 4 watts of power a year. Don't get so cold that their fuel line. They have fuel? Only 2 of Voyager 1's 10 instruments remain active. So what instruments are still active? We'll grant the spacecraft only about 1 year of life. There's a plan to get more out of the spacecraft. The idea is to swap out a group of powered devices all at once, hence the nickname. Turning some things off and replacing them with lower power alternatives to keep the spacecraft warm enough to continue gathering data. Okay. I dropped something. For now, 2 instruments on Voyager 1 are examining magnetic fields and waves of plasma. Turn the LECP back on. Just in case the instrument... Takes 23 hours to send a single command. Wow. These things have gone a long way. It is they did not anticipate that these probes would go this far. They did not anticipate that these probes would go anywhere near this far. Half century, nearabouts. nearly half a century. And they will just keep going when they run out of power. These things aren't like being propelled or anything. Once they're dead, they'll just keep going. Who knows? Maybe in the distant future, millions of years in the future, they'll hit some kind of spaceship and they're like, "What the fuck is this thing?" Honestly, it's amazing that they've gotten this much out of them. It's amazing they've gotten this much out of them. And also, NASA, they are planning to test fire on the moon. Okay, so basically, with the fire thing, it's down to how fire behaves in microgravity. So here you see on the left a spherical flame, which you typically would not observe on the Earth. On the right, you see a candle flame, which is in line with what you would see on the Earth. This is how flames behave in microgravity, and this is how they behave under gravity. Simple enough. So, as it says here, gravity causes hot gases to rise, drawing fresh, cool oxygen to the base of the flame. That flow exists, but it's much slower, allowing oxygen to be continually resupplied without creating fast enough vapor movement to allow for a blow off. So basically, it can't move air that fast. So they are basically studying how to see how fire would behave on the moon, so that they can plan ahead for combating a potential electrical fire or something else on the moon. Kind of nifty, kind of cool. It's the sort of thing. It's the sort of boring little thing that you need to be aware. You need to be on top of. Kind of neat. And moving on to our next story, back to open source and the operating system age verification. There is now a federal level age verification bill called the Parents Decide Act. And it has passed, it hasn't passed into law, it has been introduced, and it has bipartisan support across both major parties in the USA. So this would be a universal to the entirety of the USA. So there's no getting around this one anywhere in the USA. If you're under 18, you will need a parent or guardian to verify a date of birth. It also requires a system for application developers to access this date of birth and store the information securely. And additionally have features for parents to control what under 18s can access on the device. And it doesn't say anything about how any of this would actually be done. Instead, as I recall, it compels some state body to figure that out within a certain amount of time. One of the funny things here is that it is so broad with its definition of operating system that any potential electronic device could be impacted. A smart fridge is complicated enough to be impacted with this. A calculator is smart enough to be impacted by this. You will have to age verify your calculator. You will have to age verify your smart fridge. Why do you have a smart fridge? You deserve this. It's obviously this doesn't affect us outside of the USA, but it is again kind of silly. It is kind of silly. We'll see obviously how this goes, and yeah, not good. Obviously, some bills relate in this vein have already passed in U.S. states. This is just a federal one, meaning it applies to all states. Obviously, I don't know how they would interact with each other. That would be messy in its own right. And obviously, some people are like, "Oh, well, this will affect you if you're not in the USA," and it's like, only if I use Windows. If I don't use Windows, it's not going to have much of an effect on me. So adopt Linux. Linux saves the day, everyone. Linux saves the day. And on to our next story. Valve has received delivery of their Steam controllers, and they have reportedly unloaded a unboxing video to Steam, which has people getting very excited. This has got people very excited because obviously the Steam controller being released could be an indication that soon, TM, the Steam frame and Steam machine will be coming, and everyone's excited for that. Obviously, we'll see. We'll see how that pans out. Hopefully, I mean, I would not like it if the Steam controller came out on its own. I would much prefer it if all three of them came out together because I think that would be better for Valve and there'd be a chance of getting a nice combo deal. But I have been kind of looking forward to this thing. The original Steam controller was quite the nice piece of kit, so it'd be nice to see a new one. It'd be nice to see a new one. Onto other technology news. DARPA has developed powdered blood. From the same guys who brought you the internet and the corpse-eating robot, we now have powdered blood. And it works in animals. So now they want to try it in humans. The interesting thing here is not so much the powdered blood, but more why they're making the powdered blood. Future wars may limit evacuations, making blood supply in the field a growing concern. Basically, it seems a good chunk of people, or at least enough people to get this project going in the Pentagon, are very concerned that in the future, the battle space for the Americans will not be as generous as it has been during the War on Terror. Where the, well, here you go. As the Pentagon shifts from how the US military prepares for future wars, 2 decades of the global war on terror saw US troops often working with air superiority, meaning here that they didn't have aircraft or anti-air capabilities to worry about. Worst case scenario, they were whipping out a 40-year-old, like a, not 40-year-old, like a 20 or 30-year-old Stinger. Way past its use by date. So troops could be very quickly evacuated, and they could be evacuated to installations with a lot of like really good equipment, proper facilities. But as they've seen in Ukraine, that's not really proven possible for either side, as it is simply too difficult to get any kind of aircraft in the air for a meaningful amount of time. Helicopters are under attack. Drones are lingering around wounded troops. It's and again, prospect of conflict in remote Pacific Island chains without medical infrastructure. Basically, they're worried they're not going to have the air superiority they've grown accustomed to, and they're not going to have the infrastructure they're accustomed to. So they've looked at this powdered blood substitute as an answer. Now, I'm wondering, is it like powdered blood? Is it like blood that's been made into a powder, or is it a powdered blood substitute? Doesn't really say. Calling the worker truly disrupt. Either way, this would be very helpful in general medical use as well. So it would be very nice to have this. Dual chamber blood bags, separating it from sterile water to be mixed just before a patient needs. Oh yeah, okay, that's a cool trick. Stuff the bags into their kit, pop the bag open, mix the powder and water, and there's your solution. That's pretty cool. Getting it beyond the lab. Yeah, so here's like some of the thinking at the Pentagon. Up to 1,000 troops may be killed and wounded each day for months in a high-intensity Pacific-based conflict. Many will have survivable injuries, yet 1 in 4 will die at the hands of an unprepared system. Basically, again, they are not as confident as they seem in a lot of their public-facing statements. So this is a neat thing, but it shows the sort of concerns that the American military has going forward. Like, there's a lot of people within the American military's senior leadership who are looking at their situation, going, "Ah, shit, we've had it good, and things are about to get bad." Ties into the current conflict, certainly. as well as a future potential conflict with China over Taiwan and Southeast Asia. And skipping away from that to Britain, to jolly old Blighty. The Prime Minister might be getting the boot, finally. He might finally be getting the boot. You see, for a while now, Keir Starmer has been suffering from his choice of American ambassador. Peter Mandelson, a fellow who is well known within the Labour Party, very influential, formerly, within the Labour Party, the current ruling party, has, well, he was revealed as a long-standing associate of Jeffrey Epstein, despite his claims that he stopped associating with Epstein after his first criminal conviction for being a nonce. Not after the second, not after the second one, or not, not the first one. He says he stopped being a friend around the first one. This wasn't true. As the Epstein files showed us, this was very not true. And obviously now lots of questions have been raised about why Keir Starmer placed Peter Mandelson as the UK's ambassador to the USA. A very senior role in general view of the elite of our country, because obviously they value the alliance with the USA quite highly. It's been a funny situation for me, and it's only gotten worse when it was discovered that Peter Mandelson failed his security vetting. So not only did Keir Starmer appoint a friend of Jeffrey Epstein's to the position, he appointed him after he had failed the security vetting. Absolute fucking farce. Absolute fucking farce. His Keir Starmer's excuse was that he was simply not aware. He said if he had known, he would not have gone ahead with the appointment. I can't imagine a situation where he was not told. I cannot imagine a situation where he was not made aware of this. And the PM is, of course, insisting he has not misled the Commons, despite saying in the past that full due process was followed. It's become quite the mess for him. He is not going very well. It is not going very well for him. There we go. We've got Mandelson on the left there. Doesn't that man look sinister to you? The guy on the right does too, but he looks especially sinister. This looks like a guy who would eat a baby, in my opinion. A senior civil servant at the Foreign Office was effectively sacked. Obviously, they don't sack senior civil servants in this country. He'll have just been reassigned. But yes. Permanent undersecretary, yeah. These guys don't go away. He'll have just been reassigned somewhere and told to keep his head down. It's been quite a mess for him, though. He has basically been trying to dodge it and talk in circles to try and avoid culpability. But no, it looks like this could be the thing that finally gets rid of Keir. This could be the thing that finally gets rid of Keir. And on another UK government front, news. Parliament has passed the UK Tobacco and Vapes Bill to create the first smoke-free generation. From 2027, the legal age to buy cigarettes and tobacco will rise by 1 year every single year. But does that include vapes? It says vapes in the name, but it doesn't seem to say actually includes vapes. Built to make precision. Oh, okay. No, no. Actually, this might actually include vapes as well. Oh, no. Okay, it might not. It might not. It's hard to say what to. Never be able to buy tobacco. Criminalize possession of tobacco. So basically, it doesn't look like it's covering vapes. It doesn't look like it's covering vapes at all, despite vapes being in the bill's name. It doesn't look like it's actually covering vapes. But basically, if you were born on or after the 1st of January 2009, you will never be able to buy a cigarette or a cigar, or indeed any tobacco product, presumably. Whilst current smokers will be entirely unaffected. Anyone born before that date will be entirely unaffected. It's a proposal that's been floating around for a while. It's a proposal that's been floating around for a while. I don't generally like smoking, but honestly, I don't really think there's much point to this one because smoking is on the decline in this country. The kids don't smoke, they vape. They're getting a lot more nicotine out of that one. You might want to do something about the vapes and just not worry too much about the smokers because smoking is on the out. Though I suppose if you're gonna, you might make sense to deal with this now and then target the vapes later. I don't know. Obviously, obviously, some people don't like this. Other people are ambivalent, and personally, I think it's a rare. No, I wouldn't say a win, but it's a rare positive note. Smoking is a horrible habit that does horrible things to the body and everyone around you. So ending that is generally a good thing, I would say. Ending that is generally a good thing, I would say. It's definitely going to be controversial. It still needs to receive royal assent, I think. So we'll see what happens with that one. Who knows? Maybe King Charles will go, no, I don't like this one. But obviously, this does create great financial opportunity. Selling smokes to children. Obviously, the people talk about prohibition and all that, but this is quite different from prohibition because existing smokers will be entirely unaffected. They might have to jump through an extra hurdle or two to buy them, but they will be unaffected. So, this is we'll see how that pans out, but obviously there's going to be a lot of adults selling cigarettes and so on to children. That will especially as they get older, so that'll be pretty likely. You've already got kids begging for smokes and vapes outside of shops these days anyway, so I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. But yes, that has been the dumpster dive for the 22nd. 22nd? The 21st of the 4th. 21st of April, 2026. The information cutoff time was 2200 hours. It has been lovely having you all here. Make sure to look after yourselves. Keep your heads down. Because even though we may be at peace temporarily, this shit will always kick off again. And if you want to take up smoking, maybe now's your time if you're in the UK. I don't recommend it, but if you really want to try it, maybe now's your best option. Until next time, look after yourselves. Stay safe. Bye bye.